Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you all, particularly thanks to the IAS and the organizers for arranging this important conference. I would like to start by sharing a memory from my third year as an undergraduate university student in Persian Language and Literature. I used to love my stylistics section of C course. In one of the sessions on a Khorasani style, the dominant style of Persian poetry from around the 3rd to the late 6th century Hijri, 9th to 12th century CE, our professor explained that the Khorasani style evokes Mount Damavand, the zenith of the Iranian plateau, majestic and sonorous. It resembles Persepolis, whose towering and resplendent columns bespeak the grandeur and opulence of the edifice. Within the poetic corpus of this style, exemplified by luminaries such as Ferdowsi and Nasr Khosrow, the gravity of the metrical structures, the magnificence of the lexicon, and the emphasis on intellect are all readily apparent. A few years later, upon encountering the Dīwān-i Qā'immiyāt, I discerned analogous characteristics in it: the gravity of the meters, the glory of the lexicon, and attention to complicated philosophical and theological notions. The Dīwān-i Qā'immiyāt, or Poems of the Resurrection, a significant poetic opera in Persian composed by Hasan Mahmud Katib during the Alamut period of the early 7th-13th century, was written at Alamut approximately a century after Imam Hassan alayhi salam's declaration of the Qiyamah, or resurrection. The book, besides containing abundant historical details, provides an exceptionally clear picture of Da'wat Qiyamat, which is unparalleled. However, the Dīwān-i Qā'immiyāt merits scholarly attention, not solely for its theological and historical content, but also for its mode of transmission through poetic discourse. In today's short presentation, and through only a few examples, I intend to analyze the Imam's status within the Divine by firstly situating its theological underpinnings within the works of Hassani Mahmud's eminent contemporary polymath, Khaja Nasruddin Tusi, specifically his Rozeh Taslim, or Paradise of Submission, and Sayr Suluk, Contemplation and Action. And secondly, assessing his literary and poetic coherence. I will argue that the poetic articulation of these complex theological concepts facilitated their comprehension and reception within the diverse strata of the Ismaili community. Further instances, along with more comprehensive analysis, will be presented in my forthcoming paper on this subject. The description of the Imam's status in the Dīwān-i Qā'immiyāt are very grand, and in some cases, at least at first glance, even exaggerated. For example, in one of the odes or qasidas of a divan, the poet informs the audience that بدان که واحد و پاینده و محیط به کل امام وقت و خداوند عصر مولاناست. Know that the one, the eternal, and the all-encompassing, the Imam of the time and the Lord of the age, is our Mawla. You dare not breathe a word of his virtues, so for even the actualized intellect is dazzled, blinded by that absolute light. Or in another ode, our poet admonishes that در این سرای فنا خالص از برای خدا دلی ببایدت از هر چه جز خداست جدا. In this transient realm, you must have a heart pure for God's sake, separate from all save God. With sound faith and belief, such a heart recognizes and knows God and Maulana as one. I am grateful to my esteemed master, Professor Shafiq Virani, for his kind assistance with the translation. Indeed, in such verses, the poet or poets of the Dīwān-i Qā'immiyāt view their praised figure from a perspective unprecedented in a history of Persian literature, and even within the history of the Ismaili community. In these verses, we encounter a radically different theological viewpoint that completely overturns previous foundations. The era of Sharia and its associated concepts lose their value, retaining only a historical significance, if any. On the other hand, the echo of the Qiyamati doctrines of Nizari Ismailism becomes thoroughly predominant. During this period, the essential tenet of the Ismaili Dawah remained the foundational Sharia belief in an essential affinity between the Prophet and his successor. However, the earlier Dawah's emphasis on Imamat, characterized by descriptions of the Imam as a possessor of esoteric knowledge, an interpreter, a manifestation of a Kalamiyyah Tawheed or word of unity, evolved. This evolution led to a new understanding of foundational beliefs, elevating the Imam status beyond the traditional concept of Imamat. Within this system, the Imam was initially designated as Muhiq, the truthful master, and Maulana, our Lord, later progressing to Qa'im, the resurrector, or Qa'im al-Qiyamat, the resurrector of the resurrection. As Dr. Jalal Badakhshani articulates in the preface of the Dīwān-i Qā'immiyāt, a term Maulana, while used with varying meanings in the Quran, carries a specific connotation in a hadith of Qadir Khum, which mirrors Hassan Sabbah's intended meaning in his Da'wat al-Ta'lim. The core issue in a Qadir Khum hadith concerns the relationship between the Haqq or truth and Ali. Does the Haqq follow Ali, or does Ali follow the Haqq? In a Da'wat al-Ta'lim, the Haqq follows Ali. This crucial distinction is essential for understanding the poetry of the Dīwān-i Qā'immiyāt. In such a framework, a criteria for the correctness of any belief is its connection to Imam Ali or to the Imam who is his successor. According to Hassan Sabbah, quote, "The truth in each era is what the truthful master of a time, or Muhaqqiq Waqt, may salutations ensue upon mention of him, proclaims, and not that which has been heard from a truthful master in the past. Any truth which mankind has heard from a truthful master in the past, and which has been twisted and turned by people over time, is but a fragment. Detached from the bearer of a truth of a time, it is taken out of its whole and original source. Reuniting that truth with the truthful master of a time effectively reconnects it with its whole and original source. Further, in a whole universe, it's impossible to constitute a truth hypothetically to be truth by itself, so that people might become followers of truth when they implement it. Likewise, no falsehood can be constituted hypothetically to be false by itself, so that when people follow it, they become followers of falsehood. On the other hand, truth is that which is connected with the truthful master of a time, and falsehood is that which is detached from the truthful master of a time." Unquote. In other words, the realization of a truth or haqq is contingent upon the concrete existence of the Imam of the time. Without knowing the Imam, it is impossible to know the truth and reality of a faith. This concept forms the foundation and essence of the Ismaili Dawah in the Alamut period. As Nasiruddin Tusi states in Paradise of Submission, the truth is known through the truthful master. Haqq ra be muhiq shanasand. The understanding that Nasiruddin Tusi had regarding the use of such glorious epithets, especially the term Mawla for the Imam, is mentioned within a narrative of his own spiritual autobiography, Contemplation and Action. Quote, "At that time, when I had not yet joined the Jamaat and had not yet acquired much understanding of a true religion or a mazhab haqq, I was engaged in a dispute with the jurist Faqih in Jajam. In the course of a debate, the jurist denigrated the Ismailis. I asked the reason for this, and he said that they considered the Imam to be God, because they refer to the Imam with the word our Lord, Maulana, which, in their opinion, could not be used except for God. Sometimes they say our Lord Ali or our Lord Muhammad, and sometimes, when addressing God, they say and write, O Allah, our Lord, Allahumma Maulana, and so on. They seek from our Lord what should be sought through prayer from God. I said that if he were to consider the matter fairly, he would find that the foundation of their belief, or Qaidiyya Mazhab, is that since God cannot be recognized except through the Imam, The relationship of an Imam to God in respect to his guidance is like that between the name and what it names. Do not ordinary people or Ahl Orf use the same word for both the name and the named? They call Zayd Zayd and also call his spoken or written name Zayd. It is because of this that one group have imagined the name to be the same as the named. Thus, if the Ismailis use the name of God, i.e. Maulana, for the person who is the guide to God, they are not deviating from the rules of a philologist or from customary practice. For this reason, they are not guilty of exaggeration, and vilification is not appropriate for them, unquote. Thus, according to Tusi, the Ismaili use of Maulana for both the Imam and God is not heretical, but rather a reflection of the Imam's crucial role in guiding believers to God, similar to how a name represents a spirit. Therefore, the Ismaili practice shouldn't be condemned as attributing divinity to the Imam. Discussing the literary and poetic merits of the Dīwān-i Qā'immiyāt and its portrayal of the Imam's sublime status, it's important to bear these preliminaries in mind for a better understanding of its features. Language serves as the embodiment of the soul's movements. Consequently, a poet's language is an external representation of their internal emotional states. On the other hand, poetry can be understood as the musical expression of language. According to Dr. Seddigheh Kardan, the distinguished contemporary Iranian scholar in Persian Language and Literature, poetry is inherently reliant on a faculty of imagination. It is a confluence of emotion and imagination articulated in a melodious language. However, the musicality of poetry surpasses the conventional notions of rhyme and refrain. It extends beyond the strictly auditory definition of music as presented in the works of Ibn Sina, aligning more closely with the expansive conceptualization of music as understood by the Ikhwan Safa. This broader understanding of music in poetry encompasses not only sounds, but also various forms of correspondence, opposition, contrast, and harmonic proportion. In his groundbreaking work, The Poetry Music, or Musiqi She'r, Seddigheh Kardan writes, quote, "When we broaden the definition of music to include all forms of correspondence and balance, we open up the possibility of attributing musical qualities to abstract mental phenomena such as ideas, associations, and recollections. These mental correspondences, contrasts, and symmetries have been categorized under the term semantic music, which within the fields of literary criticism and rhetoric," unquote. In this brief remaining time, I will discuss the proportion and semantic music in the Dīwān-i Qā'immiyāt as an effective factor in the admissibility of complex theological and abstract concepts of this work by presenting few examples in the ode's meters, poetic diction, and the abundant use of long vowels in the construction of words, as well as figures of speech. As pointed out at the beginning of the paper, the meters of a poem in a Khorasani style are weighty and firm. One of the factors contributing to the strong meters in Persian poetry is the length of the hemistichs. The longer the hemistichs, the stronger and weightier the meters of the poems often become. In both of the poetic examples presented earlier, the meter of the odes is Mujattasi Musamman, which is of a dominant meters in the Dīwān-i Qā'immiyāt. Among the characteristics of this meter are its length and inclusion of long vowels in the constituent parts of words. This second characteristic leads us to the second factor under discussion. In the Dīwān-i Qā'immiyāt, words predominantly feature long syllables and an abundance of long vowels. Among the long vowels of a Persian language, namely A, U, and I, the predominant use of a vowel A is clearly evident in a divan. In our previously cited examples, the ratio of a long vowel A compared to both E and U combined is 16:2-3. The letter Aleph and its corresponding long vowel R possess strong symbolic and phonetic characteristics. While a discussion of the unique features of Aleph and the R sound in Persian falls outside the scope of this brief paper, it suffices to mention that in the Persian alphabet, the orthographic form of Aleph, with its inherent elongation and uprightness, symbolizes authority, strength, freedom, and intrinsic richness, characteristics of a divine beloved in Persian literature. As Hafiz Shirazi writes, "Nist bar lawh dilam juz alef qamat yar." Naught is inscribed upon the tablet of my heart, but the Aleph of the beloved stature. What can I do? For my master taught me no other letter. The long R sound is likewise considered a symbol of transcendence, superiority, and dominance. In the Dīwān-i Qā'immiyāt, the application of figures of speech, especially those pertaining to the Imam, demonstrates a natural balance, free from any hint of affectation and artifice. This is accomplished through the deployment of similes and metaphors that are consistently lucid and straightforward. Overall, the poet or poets of the Divan maintained a measured use of such devices, avoiding both extravagance and intricacy in their construction. Any perceived weightiness or difficulty in a work stems not from the complexity of its literary figures, but rather, in most instances, from the profundity and the grandeur of theological concepts being communicated.
Sorry, Seddigheh, you have got 5 minutes left, okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The most frequently used concept in the similes and metaphors related to the Imam is the concept of light, which is mentioned in the Quran in Surah An-Nur, or light, verse 35, in a description of Allah. Allahu nur as-samawati wal ard. Allah is the light of heavens and the earth. Thus, the Dīwān-i Qā'immiyāt emerges as the luminous testament to Ismaili thought, its verses echoing with the weight of Khurasani poetics and a profound resonance of the Qiyamati doctrines. The Imam in this poetic cosmos is not merely a guide, but the very axis of truth, his being illuminated by the divine light itself. The Divan's artistry, its semantic music, woven from the sonorous awe and the delicate balance of its figures, renders the most abstruse geological concepts not only comprehensible, but also deeply moving. It is a work that sings of the Imam's exalted station, a beacon of faith shining brightly across the centuries. And so the words remain etched in the heart of time, a testament to a faith that dared to dream of a divine in human form. The Dīwān-i Qā'immiyāt whispers, "Look and see the light." Thank you.